So welcome to another guitar show. As you can tell, a bit of a blues lead guitar special. However, we are going to be opening this up to be a general introduction or a exploration of what to do to make lead guitar more interesting and more specific to the rhythm parts that we're playing over. So the jam that you've just heard us do was in the key of A, and we're playing sort of a slow, traditional 12-bar blues that so many people will be familiar with when you start on this line. I would suggest, as a precursor to this lesson and to what we're going for today, that you should be comfortable with the minor pentatonic position 1, the major pentatonic, and also perhaps major scale position 1, which is more which is this position just here. Just because the first thing that we're really going to be looking at is the difference between this major third and the minor third and where to do that. Now this is the same major and minor third that is in our A major chord and our A minor chord, but we're just using it in a little bit more of an advanced way. Can you just let people know the chords that we're playing over first of all?
So it's a standard blues 1, so this is an A7. This is coming from an E shape. I'm just taking 1 or 2 notes out. Then to a D7, well this is a D9. Coming alternatively, you can go to an A shape for D7, back to an A7, and then our turnaround, so an E7, down to a D7, and then A, D, E.
And all of those chords, along with everything that we cover in this episode, is written out as a lesson plan with the tab and these chord sequences written out, and even full blues backing tracks. And we're going to be doing 3 of these. All of that is on the website, on both the Andy Guitar website and the Your Guitar Academy website. Links are in the description if you are watching on YouTube. So the first thing that I want to make people aware of when we're starting to get a lot more feeling and a lot more trying to get some more advanced concepts into the blues soloing is where to play the major third and where to play the minor third. So for the first note that we're going to be really playing is the A note. It is the same A as is the root note essentially. But there's a world of difference between, if I just played it here for example, if you just went to the second chord for me, and then back to the 1. Those notes that I played were the root note to the major third, and then the root note to the minor third. And it's the minor third that we're needing to make sure that we really only use in this particular context over this jam, over that dominant 7th chord, over the 4 chord in a 12-bar blues. Now we are going for an early 4 here. It could just be just 4 bars of the 1 chord, but here we're going to the early 4, and then in particular when we get to the start of the second line of the 12-bar blues, so bar 5 and 6, that's where we're hitting that dominant, and that's where we want to be going for that minor third. Of course, there are many positions along the neck where you can play that. This is very common, and we're in, I'm using what is known as the BB King position. I like to think of it as a little house shape just here. This is the top of position 2. So we have position 1 of the minor pentatonic just here if we're in the key of A, and then we're just here, and I like to think of it as a little house shape. Do you agree with that, or am I just making things up? We have kind of the bricks and mortar part, and then the wooden roof on top. There we go. So we have that little triangle shape just there. And if we just play those notes, these 4 notes just here, if this is unfamiliar to you, those are exactly the same 4 notes as the middle 2 strings from position 1, just to try and connect it to something that you may have done before. But one way to do this would be to just use the first finger to bend up to that major third.
That's a very blues.
And then not bending if you want it to be the minor. So rather than doing this, we're trying to get a more lyrical quality to it. Like that. personally, that doesn't play to my strengths as a guitar player, so I can see how that can be difficult for beginners to just suddenly get that first finger pushing up with it can be very hard to get any phrasing on the thinnest string. So I encourage people to try it here and put our first finger on that root note, on the A note, and either bending up a whole tone from fret 12 or a semitone for the minor, and that essentially hits those two notes here. Or what is a real cool trick that I try and get students to do who are playing along these lines is actually bending up from a semitone down, which would be essentially like a bad note, an out of key note. But it means you've just got control over that bend. It just has great taste to it.
Nice.
And that's exactly the same thing as we're doing here. And let's just hear that in context. So over the one chord.
And then.
And using other notes to taste as you would if you were just trying to keep a solo going and improvising with the minor pentatonic. So same two chords again. So much you can do, and I'm essentially playing two notes. It's so powerful. Sticking along a similar lines when we get to the second line of the 12-bar blues. And then over the 5 chord, we have a few options. I would be sticking more to just, if we think about that as our BB King box shape, I'd be pushing that 2 frets up, and that's my home when I'm doing everything that you've seen me do so far, really. Minor, I've bent up 1 fret there.
As I hit that 4 chord and then back to 1.
And occasionally overbending, which would be like the 4th. And there's an awful lot of taste there, but that as an exercise, and even just sticking to trying to force yourself to just play 2 notes, is a really cool exercise. And I think we should just finish this section by demoing that, because that would be the number one thing that I would encourage everyone to have a go at. So I'm just going to play either that or that. That's bending up to the major third, bending up to the minor third, and I'm going to try and use that only. Let's see how it goes.
Got a challenge. All right.
Well, that's what I would ask a student to do as an exercise. So let's start from that, and we'll be doing. Thomas will be showing his flash licks and doing much more than this in 1 second. But we're going to be. I guess I got my name on YouTube by teaching 2 chord songs. So let's start by lead guitar with 2 note solos. Let's go for it. Let's go for it. I'm ready. Plenty of cheating in there, because I am always choosing to either bend up to another note or not bend or overbend, but essentially just playing frets 10, 12 and 13 to play an entire blues solo and focusing on that phrasing and when to bend up to the major third and minor third. Fantastic exercise for anyone getting into any style of lead guitar. Everything that we cover in the blues, you know, that essentially all those ideas crossed over into rock and roll, crossed over into metal, crossed over into pop and everything else. It's a great starting point and is exactly the right thing to focus on, perhaps alongside some faster licks, which I'm sure we'll get onto with our second jam with Thomas. Our second jam is going to be in the key of G minor. Remember, all of these will be available as backing tracks and everything from the website. Links at the top of the description if you're watching on YouTube. And for this one, let's give a demo of this next jam now. Wonderful.
Right.
So this is a minor blues, still with 12 bars, but we have a change because the main chords that we're using, or the first two chords, are both minor. We have a G minor chord to a C minor chord, back to the G minor, thrown it to an E flat dominant, and then I used kind of this shape more for the D7, but essentially just a D7 chord, and then back to G minor. And again, a repetition of as many partial chords, which means chords that we're not playing all 6 strings on, which if you haven't seen our acoustic guitar episode that we did last week, that was a big focus. It's a higher level idea, but it's easier to play if you think about playing fewer strings, maybe 3 strings out of a chord, which means we can do that. Add a little riff in like that, which I can't do if I'm playing bar chords all the time.
And there's something that's kind of a bit cooler, I think, just the way the guitar sounds with those type of chords, rather than, for me, that's a bit clunky. The more I've grown as a
leaving
player.
Space.
Exactly. Now that's just got that bit that you leave out. You think, oh, there's nice. There's a bit of air in there between these kind of low end and then the higher notes up there.
Absolutely. And for the 4 chord, importantly, we have this minor chord, which is a C sharp minor chord, which we'll be talking a little bit about in the lead part. So remember, all that tab and the chords that we're using will be written out on the website. But what we're doing on the lead side of things.
So I'm looking at a Dorian mode, again featured in the acoustic episode we've done before. So the Dorian mode from a G to give me a slightly different flavor as opposed to just a minor pentatonic or a natural minor. So the Dorian mode noticeably has that natural 6 or a major 6 in it compared to the minor 7, or sorry, compared to the natural minor scale. So if I'm playing that G minor.
And let's just clarify, position 1, do you just want to play for us? Because this is a lot more familiar to many guitar players as it may sound.
So here's the pentatonic, as we all know and love. And now adding the Dorian notes.
Often just filling in many of the notes that you may have played already in some guitar solos.
Yeah, so I'm using that because I like that extra flavor. I like to think of these scales as spices when you're cooking. Your pentatonics, your standard old salt and pepper.
Thomas's cookery channel coming soon to YouTube.
Another cooking show.
There we go.
But then let's say the Dorian's a bit of chili. If I put chili in a dish, I want to taste it. So
absolutely. So let's just give that some context with the chord underneath.
The G minor.
And just sticking to the minor pentatonic, it can be very hard for some people to start adding these extra notes because they're not used to hearing them, and they're a lot safer.
They are.
It's harder to hit a wrong note. And for some people, for plenty of people that are learning, it's hard enough just to get those notes right without thinking about, are we adding chili to a dish that we shouldn't, you know what I mean? But let's have a look at what it adds when we, for example, go to this minor 4 chord, which is the C minor.
This, now I'll swap because the Dorian note won't work. So this is going back a bit to the whole major third, minor third thing. In a Dorian mode, over the C, that's a major third, so I'm going to play a minor third to reach it. So
that was a nice lick. We're tabbing that one out on the website. Lots of slide, but that's the important note, and you can stick all the rest. Keep all the rest the same, but you've got to be aware that note, because of the rhythm part and the musical context, that's what we're always pulling these to. That's why we're doing little jams and little backing tracks.
If I play a Dorian note over that, ooh.
It's like the cycle thing.
Oh, there's a raw fishbone in this dish now suddenly.
Don't keep going on. They will ask us for a cookery show. But then when we come back to that one chord,
then we go back into
absolutely. So that is why I feel that is why we started with that more standard 12-bar blues jam, but the difference between that major third and a minor third. That is the place where we both recommend that we introduce that concept of not having one scale for an entire song, but thinking about a scale over perhaps most chords in a song, and then you change it for a particular chord, which is why it's great that it would be great if everyone should begin to learn lead guitar, at least somewhat with the blues in mind, because you have this 12 bars to work over, and it's a set formula, as it were. With pop songs or classic rock songs, the sections can be whatever they are. We have a verse, a bridge and a chorus, and they can all be different. Whereas this, you have a repetitive pattern that it's based off of, and we start to treat it more like a language, or as I say, like a cookery show, apparently. So what are we playing over the 5 chord and this sort of?
Yeah, so the turnaround is a bit of a weird one because this is not in the key of G. This would normally be an E flat major chord, but we've added the 7 to give it that extra tension. So my go-to whenever something gets a little bit hairy like that and isn't within the key is to focus on the arpeggio notes, so the notes that appear in that chord itself. Now if you stick with those, you are never going to go wrong as long as you're following the chords as they move. And that way I can really bring out that change. You're going to hear a note that I haven't played before and it's going to hit you over the head. So if we're sitting in this G minor, as soon as I go to this, and then move it down to the D, the same intervals across both those chords, just moving down to match them. And it just really frames the sound of that chord for me.
Absolutely. So in that context, and that thinking about it as an arpeggio is one great get out of jail free card, frankly. If you're unsure of what works over this chord, play the notes from that chord. So it's really essential to know what chords you're playing over, as well as just the key. Or you can abandon that idea and just stick to perhaps one note or one string, and kind of use the trick that I was using earlier, which was bending up to a note that works and relying almost totally on ear. And this is where what has been my get out of jail free card in many of this kind of situation is the fact that I am a singer and I am comfortable with harmonies or bending up to notes and hopefully singing in tune most of the time. One would hope. So if you have this sort of idea, you know, thinking about it more of what notes work melodically over that, and even if we're just sticking to, so as soon as I went to that note, you knew, you're expecting that chord, because it works harmonically. It's just which one matches. Again, all music is this consonance and dissonance, this tension and release. And it does come down to taste a lot more, and it really comes down to the musical situation. Everything we're covering here works over this jam really well. That is why it can be a very scary thing to go into lead guitar, and why it's absolutely appropriate to know what you're playing over, and then have these sort of little tricks for that musical situation, which entirely crosses over to classic rock, to pop music, to anything else that you ever want to play over. But that's a great example of that.
I would just add to the end actually here, if you're trying to do this type of thing, mixing, because I know I found it very hard mixing scales in the middle of a solo, make sure just start on one position, start with the minor pentatonic and then the Dorian or the natural minor, whatever you want to mix, and make sure you're happy with both of them in just the one position, and then just slowly work it into changing through when the chord happens, and when you're happy with that, add the next position, and so on like that. That's how I built it up.
Absolutely, and all of this again based on, you know, sticking to the position of the minor pentatonic position 1, which would still work, but any time that we're hitting that 4 chord, we're really trying to add that minor note.
Again, that's an arpeggio note.
Exactly, and just being aware of that one note is you're so ahead of the game, and you're going to get so much more interest from it. And over your turnaround, you could still just stick to Dorian or minor pentatonic. It's not going to instantly sound wrong every time, but whenever you are on a wrong note, you're perhaps just one fret
Yeah,
away.
absolutely.
So when you know a lot of the faster licks that you play, Thomas, and we're all like, wow, that catches our ear or our eye or something, often it is just a little slide to another fret, but you could use that to your advantage and think, oh no, oh, that's the one, you know. So again, full backing track with that to play over on yourself, or you could try that with a Jam Buddy, and we've got a couple of the little tab bits and some examples on the website. But let's get up to our final jam now. So this final blues track is in the key of C, and we're going for, again, a sort of slow blues, but this time thinking more of a Peter Green style, along the lines of Need Your Love So Bad, the famous tune, which is wonderful, and we're doing a lot of the same moves of this. So we're starting off with the C chord to a C7, F, and then moving the F to an F sharp note, which really amps up the emotional tension.
That's great.
Absolutely. And I always like to think of these chords as just increasing one note out of the chord, either up or down, and that always gets more emotion. And then more of a standard kind of blues turnaround. So going down to the minor, major 6. No, we did stick to minor for the jam, didn't we? D minor, G, C, all of that, as I say, will be written down on the website. We did add a little middle 8 to this, because there's this. Just to show you guys what I was doing there, but I think much better to focus more on the lead stuff for this last one and go a little bit more advanced. Thomas, tell us what you were doing. Show me.
So it's pretty much the same concepts we've looked at in the last two, but because the changes now are much more...
We easily have more chords in this and more structure.
There's more in them. So it's just taking those concepts, changing what I'm playing throughout, but trying to match what I'm playing to these ever-changing chords. So it's not just a 3-chord or a 4-chord thing. There's God knows how many in this, but that's what the difference is.
There are more than would normally be.
There's a lot. So it's just taking the same stuff, same little phrasing techniques, and finding the scale that I like over the particular chord that's happening.
So is there a kind of home that you're building around this? I think that's what we've done well to
yes.
people.
So I think to me, this is a major sounding blues.
Absolutely.
So I'm in a C major pentatonic position. What would you call this, position 1? So just starting from the 8th fret there. That's
absolutely
what I'm focusing on normally. And then I will also put in some C minor pentatonic in position 1 over the 4-chord.
Over the 4 and then the augmented.
Adding some arpeggio notes for the
absolutely
the expensive chords in there.
Love that. The expensive chords, even though those would be chords played by someone in the corner of a jazz bar who's getting paid $10 an hour. But they are expensive sounding chords.
So with that one, for instance, people go, well, what do I play over that? Again, I'll go with an arpeggio. So either a minor scale or the arpeggio is going to work. And then when it goes back to the C, the tension lifts and back to
really
C
does
major.
resolve, doesn't it? And that's,
really
that's the
nicely.
biggest thing, and that is the overriding thing about being in a key as well. When you come back to the one chord and that major third, you are resolving tension, and all this. The reason this sounds so harmonically complex, I guess, is it is absolutely ramping up tension, which is resolved to that one. And when we do this turnaround, absolutely
So when
tension
we hit
resolved.
that turnaround, that's a great place. My ear goes, well, that's a major turnaround. All the chords are coming from a C major key, C major scale, so I'm going to focus on a C major scale sound there. And maybe look again some arpeggio notes or some slightly outside the arpeggio notes if I want that slightly advanced sound. So if you do that turnaround on the A, I'll do some arpeggio notes. Whoa, another expensive one.
That's just essentially a G or a G7, but with
Sharp 5 in it.
sharpen the 5.
Lovely.
That's all we think about. We've got to at some point learn that chords are made up of single notes, and you can change those single notes up or down by a semitone to really create that expensive chord sound. I guess.
So if I had known that Andy was going to do that, thanks for letting me know, I would have gone, okay, I'm not going to play that, I'm going to play and match the chord, what I'm playing to the chord.
Absolutely, which is why you should know exactly the chords that you're playing over, but with a blues, whatever happens the first time round, you're presuming something similar is going to happen the next time,
Exactly.
so you know for the next turn. Or if something doesn't work and you're working over a backing track, next time make that adjustment, but over that chord, over that same bar, as it were, when it repeats. Anything else in particular?
So if we do the turnaround again, I'll play some outside the arpeggio notes and you'll hear it kind of extend past, hopefully.
Yeah, sorry, I thought you knew it. So that straight away has such a different sound, and again, much more of a John Mayer sound. You were mentioning,
Yeah.
I think it was in the previous acoustic guitar lesson that we did. You guys have a John Mayer course which can get such that different sound, but that mix of the blues and pop, that mix of the major and minor, the subtleties in between them, that's where all those expensive chords are, that expensive
exactly.
sound, that just is the reason a lot of us like this style of guitar and
So
the higher level
the
playing.
core for it is, if you can look at those notes or those chords on a sheet and identify that part's major, that part's minor. I don't know what that part is, so I'm going to go arpeggio. That's exactly how I look at this.
You have your blueprint
Exactly.
throughout any jam, any time.
Major on the 1, minor on the 4, arpeggio on that. And then when we come into this major turnaround, back into major.
Absolutely. But I would also add that anytime you are playing and something just isn't working, the only reason we know that is because of what it sounds like.
Exactly.
So always make those minor adjustments, and then the next time the blues turns around, as it were, and it repeats again, make those adjustments there at that same bar, and you're just sort of improving the same. A good thing to do when you're practicing over backing tracks is to improve the same solo the next time it comes round, and when you've overworked that idea, then perhaps move on to something else. But for practicing, one idea, how much can you get out of it? How expensive can you make it sound? And of course, you could do the same thing if you just play the chords for me. Sorry, the second chord in this would be that just raising the to the third as a root note. So just play that.
And then up to the F.
Thinking about it as the same concept that we did on the first jam, same note locations in terms of the shapes that we're using. all those concepts will work throughout each of these, but the different chords underneath, the musical situation, really challenges people in just enough.
Yeah.
But you've always got something to fall back on. I hope that's something you've really enjoyed, guys. I hope you're digging these different ways, different things that we're trying out with another guitar show. Let us know what you want to see from this show in the comments below. Remember that backing tracks, chord positions and tab for different bits of this are all in the full lesson plan on each of our websites, and the link's in the top of the description. Please subscribe to my Andy Guitar YouTube channel and the Your Guitar Academy YouTube channel. We're going to be going between the two for each of these sessions every Sunday. We hope to see you next Sunday with another one, and take care of yourselves. Bye for now.
Yeah.